This is The Weekly Set, an official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
You have come here to beseech me?
Yet. Yes. For your soul.
Madness can be a medicine for the modern world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I'm your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
Today, we are doing episode 295 of the podcast, and we are starting a new series, and that is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're discussing episode 1, which just released, New World Order. The episode was directed by Kerry Skoglund, who's worked on The Handmaid's Tale, and the showrunner of this series is Malcolm Spellman, who works on Empire. I think this might be his first as showrunner. So this is a series that follows the characters of Falcon, Sam Wilson, and Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. And in the first episode, they're not together. They're kind of like showing their separate lives. And what's interesting is that these are kind of like two sidekick characters, basically, from the movies. But like, we never really got a good chance to explore much of their depth of like what they're going through and their struggles, because they were like side characters for like Steve Rogers for Captain America.
Right, yeah.
This show's giving us a chance to kind of like really understand these characters besides just kind of their surface quirks, you know? So that's kind of what this show is we're seeing kind of these two sides of the story right now, and eventually they're going to converge. I'm guessing probably like in the next episode or something, because there's only like 6 episodes of this series. So I think they're going to probably get together fairly soon. But right now we just kind of got two separate stories. Sam Wilson's story and Bucky Barnes' story. Which do you want to start with?
Let's start with Sam Wilson's story.
All right, so the show kind of kicks off with Sam like having like this big action scene where he's flying through. It's kind of reminiscent of like, I don't know, like that one scene in Independence Day, or like several scenes from like Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah, it's a big bombastic flight based, obviously, because of Sam's powers.
Flying through the narrow canyons.
Flying through narrow canyons type thing. It's the big action set piece of the episode. You don't get another one.
Well, we get one kind of with Bucky that's like a memory.
It's a memory. It's like
it's still a big action set piece, you know. It's not as big. It's not as big.
It's not like a huge thing.
It's big for a typical television show, I think.
Okay, yeah, I suppose.
I mean, he comes bursting through a wall. You know?
Oh, he does, yeah.
But we're talking about Sam right now. So yeah, we have this scene where he's basically like, he's trying to get somebody out of that's been taken hostage, and he's trying to get him back from this group. And, one of the things that's interesting right off the bat is that, did you notice that amongst the group that he's fighting is, the actor, George St. Pierre? Yeah,
it's Batroc the Leaper. He's the leader of the group.
Yeah. And,
he comes back.
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, yeah. Yeah, Batroc is, from my understanding, he's a minor reoccurring Captain America villain. I don't know too much about him, though.
That was cool to see, though. It was cool to see, like, just that continuity of that. And that's the thing, like, a real general thing about both Sam's and Bucky's story is that, to me, this episode felt very much like Act 1 of a Captain America movie. Like, the first act of any of the Captain America movies kind of feels roughly like around like this kind of tone and pacing and this kind of like setup, you know? It feels very much along those lines. So that's like the thing I think I really dug about this episode, is how much it felt like Captain America.
Yes. Obviously opening the series with Batroc the Leaper is kind of a statement of intent saying, yes, this is Captain America. This is a continuation specifically of the Captain America films. You know, This is what this is.
Yeah, definitely. And the scene itself, as they're saying, it was awesome. It was badass.
Yes.
It was very, very long and multi-layered and lots of like back and forth moments when like he's, Sam will like get into a plane, start going after the hostage. They'll escape, stealing the hostage with them. He goes off the plane, blows up the plane. It's like this kind of like thing happens like multiple times. It's just this crazy, chaotic fight.
Yeah, it's this crazy, chaotic action scene. It's like, obviously they want to make an impression starting the series, and they did it.
Yeah. It was really cool. It ends with the introduction, or like throughout it gives us also the introduction to a new character, Joaquin Torres, who's kind of like the boots on the ground for Sam Wilson. He's kind of giving him intelligence from the ground as Sam's doing this flight.
Yes.
And so the next scene we see with him is like the two of them are having like drinks or food, I guess, on like the street, and they're chatting about, just some different criminal groups and stuff that are acting up, and kind of giving us little like kind of plot things to build up to. They're talking about what's it called? Flag Breakers, the group?
Flag Smashers.
Flag Smashers.
It's called, yeah.
Which is a group who, according to Torres, like preferred the world as it was after the snap, before the blip brought everybody back. And so they believe in like a world without borders and stuff. These kind of like idealistic elements of their belief system of like, a world without borders kind of thing means that there's probably going to be a conflict about, are these people maybe a little bit in the right? And that seems like a very like Captain America thing to do as well.
Yes.
To kind of like, set you up with you thinking like, oh, here's the hero's side. And you're actually like seeing maybe the villain's side, And I think this is made clear afterwards, or by the end of the episode, but starting after that scene, when we see that Sam is not going to take up the mantle of Captain America. He believes that the shield is only like the shield and the mantle is only a representation of the man himself. And that man is the only one that could wield it, which was Steve Rogers, and that they need new heroes with their own mantles to prove themselves.
Right.
It's kind of like his philosophy on why he doesn't want to take up the mantle.
Yeah. He's, Sam is conflicted. He knows Steve asked him to take up the mantle, but he doesn't believe that he's worthy of that mantle, or that he could live up to it. He doesn't want to. I guess he's conflicted about taking that on.
Mm-hmm. We get another cameo here. James Rhodey is in the audience,
who I guess is Iron Man now that Tony Stark's gone. So
or he's just still using his other.
No, he's
Iron Patriot now.
Yeah, he's Iron Patriot now. Jesus. Yeah, I think Rhodey's still going by War Machine.
Yeah. So, Rhodey's kind of in the audience. The second Sam's basically talking about not really taking the mantle, you could see he's kind of, a look of kind of disappointment kind of goes over his face.
Yeah.
He has a talk with Sam about that afterwards, where they kind of talk about their positions on that, where he's like, why didn't you take the mantle? And, Sam kind of explains his position a little bit more clearly than he did, than he did before, when he was basically turning over the shield to be on display in the museum with, Cap's armor and everything. But before he has that discussion with where Sam and Rhodey have that discussion, he gets approached by like a government person who's like talking to Sam and saying like, you made the right choice, which immediately makes me go like, something's up here.
Yeah, you made the right choice by not deciding to become Captain America. Good for you. It's
yeah,
like,
something
really?
about that immediately felt like wrong.
Yeah.
Not Sam making that choice, but that guy
patting somebody on the back for not doing something is
it just kind of it rang kind of suspect.
Yeah,
sus, as the kids like to say these days.
Sus.
But anyways, we see Sam, he heads home. He's, hanging out with his sister and his nephews. He talked about the fact that when he came back from the blip, like his nephews that were like babies are like, they're like little kids, they can talk and they're growing up and stuff. And he shows up. The nephews are delighted to see him. They're calling him Uncle Sam, which is kind of hilarious. And he and his sister are kind of like butting heads a little bit because she's been struggling to kind of keep some of their family assets in play. Basically, they have like a boat that they basically grew up on. It was like their family business. It's not in great condition. She wants to sell it. He wants to keep it. And then they get into this. We're starting to get into like what it means to be an Avenger in the MCU. And it doesn't mean like you have like job security and wealth, you know?
Right, exactly.
So they're, you know, Sam convinces his sister to go to the bank with him, and they're going to try to get a loan so they can save everything with the business. And they go in there, and the bank guy's like a big, like, you know, gushing fan of his and everything. But that doesn't matter because he's still not going to treat him right.
No, he's not. The banker turns out to be just some asshole who only cares about Sam as a celebrity and not as a person.
It's funny where they have the part where I like the line his sister had where the guy said, like, we have 5 months without income or 5 years without income. And his sister's like, how can he have income when he doesn't exist?
Yeah, exactly. Really.
But that's such a real thing. Like, you could totally see that happening, you know?
And that's another thing about Sam's character here is pointing out is like, he's not just grappling with this choice of, do I become the next Captain America? He's grappling with the fact that he's been gone for 5 years and the world is a bit different from when he was snapped out of existence.
Yeah.
So he's trying to catch up as well. So he's got a lot going on.
You know, we've talked before and I've brought up that, like, back before I used to always say that, like, I'd prefer Bucky in the mantle of Captain America. And the main reason for that is because I like the whole man out of time kind of aspect of Captain America. And, like, Bucky shares that with Steve Rogers. So I like that. That's kind of like the reason. But it's like they found a way to kind of like make that the case for Sam too. Sam is also now a man out of time, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a requirement to be a Captain America. You have to be out of time by some amount.
By some amount.
So I really enjoyed that and the way that played out to, you know, him and his sister's detriment and how they're having to deal with this kind of bullshit. And like I said, I like the idea that it's not such a clean thing. It's like, oh, you know, you're an Avenger. That doesn't mean that you're just financially secure, you know? And it kind of shows the struggles and it shows that there's like a little bit of animosity between him and his sister, a little bit, in which she's kind of like frustrated with the fact that, well, he was gone. And she says it like that, but then sometimes it's like, it wasn't like it was a vacation. He ceased to exist, you know? But she was left to kind of like pick up the pieces and keep everything running. And so she's been struggling with all this stuff and he kind of pops in, now a man out of time, being like, you know, well, what's wrong? You know, like, why is everything suddenly wrong? It's like, it's not suddenly, it's been 5 years. And so that's kind of like the struggle now between this brother and sister. And it's kind of showing Sam's kind of conflict, which I think is now also not just the idea of the mantle of Captain America, but like, should he be doing this at all? Like, should he be acting as an Avenger at all? Or is he like sacrificing his family to do that?
Yeah, and there's that question too.
So the episode ends basically with after some events that happen in Bucky's story.
Yeah. And I think this is a good jumping off point to start talking about Bucky's story.
Yeah, so then we can jump back into the end of Sam's after
Yeah, we could circle back into the end and kind of wrap up the discussion there. That seems like that would be a bit neater. So let's go into Bucky's journey this episode.
Bucky's story begins with a dream, a memory, in which he, as the Winter Soldier, kills a bunch of people and then also kills somebody who just happens to be there. An Asian kid that's just like, you know, like a college intern or something like that, I think.
Yes.
And he just happened to be there and be witness to it. And then he basically begs for his life and Bucky just points the gun and you hear the shot and that's, you know, he killed him and Bucky wakes up.
Well, Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Killed him.
And Bucky wakes up and you can see this is something that he's just always going through. He's having to reconcile what he did as the Winter Soldier. He seems to have a lot of his memories back that he didn't have before. And immediately we get a scene of him basically in therapy. It's kind of reminiscent of like, you know, like a Lethal Weapon or something where you have like Riggs having to talk to the therapist, you know?
Well, like, I posit that this entire series was probably pitched as the Marvel version of Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, definitely.
Because it fits, right? Because you got, Sam is obviously the straight-laced, you know, by the book. Like, he's the stable one, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a harder fit, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but he's the stable one.
The easier fit. Yeah, definitely he's the stable one. The easier fit is Bucky is the loose cannon, you know?
Yeah, Bucky is the loose cannon. Bucky is Riggs, who is, you know, a little bit of his mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Less like crazy and having fun with it, though, like Mel Gibson's like Riggs, and more just like he's broken, you know?
Yeah, he's broken, yeah.
And so he's in therapy. It's very reminiscent, like I said, of like a Lethal Weapon type of scene, with Riggs being like analyzed, you know? And he's like basically lying to the therapist that he's saying that he's not having dreams. The therapist is calling him on that.
Yes.
And he's getting hostile every time like the therapist like starts to write something down. He's like, oh, now you're bringing out the book. That's passive aggressive, you know? He doesn't want to be in the situation, but this is how the government forgives his acts as the Winter Soldier, is that he has to be in therapy so that they can have some assurance that he's not going to suddenly become the Winter Soldier again, to make sure that he's like, he's stable to some degree. And
right,
so
exactly.
They discuss, as he's talking to the therapist, they talk about what he's doing to like reconcile with either his victims or people that, in the case of the flashback that happens in his conversation with the therapist, somebody that benefited off of his back as the Winter Soldier. Somebody like who was involved in Hydra. And we see him like he's going through, basically he has a book of names and he's checking names off of his list. And that either means like making recompense for somebody that he harmed, or putting an end to somebody, or somebody like not meaning kill, but like arrest, right. You know, somebody who was involved in the program, you know?
Yeah. Somebody who he helped, prop up as the Winter Soldier.
Yes. And so we get a character in the flashback, Senator Atwood, who was somebody in Hydra that had gotten, you know, built up a power base off of his back as the Winter Soldier. And it looks like he's hunting them down, except instead of hunting her down and killing her, he like stops her and basically says like, you know, reads off this line that he has to read from his book or whatever. That's basically like, you know, my name's Bucky Barnes. I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. Do you remember me? Yeah. You're part of my rehabilitation or whatever.
Yeah, you're part of my rehabilitation. Yeah.
Which they set it up initially like, oh, he's going rogue and he's killing these people, but then he doesn't. He brought the police with him to basically arrest her, and he was just kind of involved in stopping her so that they could do that. Another interesting thing that kind of came up in the conversation with the therapist was that he's been ducking Sam's calls, because at one point she like asked for his phone and she's going through it and she's like, this is pathetic. You're like, I'm the only person that you've called in the last like week. Like, you have 10 contacts in your phone and I'm the only person that you've called in a week, you know? And it's all and then she says, you've been dodging like Sam's texts. So that, you know, obviously means Sam Wilson's been kind of reaching out to him, but he hasn't. So the trailers for this series have kind of like shown Sam almost having kind of a little bit of a playful animosity towards Bucky. But here we kind of see like maybe that's like a frustration with the fact that he's been reaching out and Bucky's been kind of ignoring him this whole time. But yeah, that gives us kind of our first insight into Bucky. And then the big story with Bucky in this episode is that he has been hanging out with this elderly Japanese man named Yori.
Yeah.
And it becomes pretty apparent that is actually the father of the guy that he killed in his dream.
Right. And that this is part of Bucky's making amends.
Yeah, but it's something that he's struggling with. He's inserted himself into his life, but he hasn't been able to kind of confess.
Right, exactly. He hasn't been able to tell him.
Yes. And he's seeing like the impact that just not knowing is having on Yori, but he's not being able to follow through. and say what he needs to say, which is like a big struggle for his. There's a scene where he's on a date. Basically, Yori sets him up with a girl at a restaurant.
Yes.
And they have kind of like a cute little date kind of thing. It's really kind of funny because nobody really knows about him. They don't know that he's the Winter Soldier and that he's 106 years old, and they don't know any of the stuff. He's just some guy. So they keep being playful with it. Like somebody asks, how old he is, and he says he's 106, and they laugh like it was a joke he made,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh yeah, you are old fashioned. Ha ha.
Yeah.
And he just has a look on his face like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And, at one point when he's on the date, the girl asks him, like, what's the deal with the gloves? Obviously he uses that to cover up that one of his arms is made of metal,
Right, yeah.
And he's just like, poor circulation. So he's just kind of having these kind of cute little awkward moments on the date where he's being old fashioned and she's calling him on that, and they're kind of playing around the issue of who he is, but she doesn't know. But then things kind of start to take a sour turn because she starts talking about Yori, and she says it's really cute how you've kind of inserted yourself in his life and you've kind of been taking care of him and being friends with him. He really needs it. And she starts talking about like, oh, when he lost his son, I think him not knowing is really struggles, and he just straight peace outs on their date on that. He just takes off, leaves her high and dry, because he just like has a big emotional response to what she's saying, because it's just making him feel guilty. And he goes to visit Yori to tell him, I believe that's what his intention is at that point, but he can't follow through with it.
Right.
So this is one of those things that's like, I'm guessing it's probably going to be played out till the end of the series where he eventually, confesses to Yori and tells him what he needs to know, what he needs to tell him, and it's going to be about him kind of like coming to terms with that. And that's probably going to be, I'm guessing Bucky's journey in this series is going to be symbolized by his relationship with Yori throughout the whole thing. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good guess. I mean, that makes sense.
That he's, he gets distracted by whatever ends up happening with him and Sam. And then when he comes back, he's going to have to finally, he's going to have built up his courage to finally talk to Yori about what happened. And that's going to be like his journey through this. That's my guess. But, yeah, that's kind of Bucky's story. Meanwhile, we have outside of Bucky's story, we mentioned the character of Joaquin Torres, who is the boots on the ground for Sam. He had been talking about this military group, or this militant group.
Well, yeah, the Flag Smashers, yeah.
Yeah, and they have like this symbol of like this like red hand or something that shows up like in like a AR view on cameras. And he's been kind of tracking them and keeping eyes on them. And he kind of gets himself a little bit more involved in that. Like he kind of inserts himself into like, it's almost like not like a flash mob, but like a little viral meetup thing where like different people that are involved in this group and don't even know who each other are kind of like summoned to an area. They're given masks. They put the masks on, and then they're going to act as a distraction for a guy who's basically, robbed this building to get away.
Right.
And so he's kind of inserted himself in this, but then he tries to stop the robber, who is clearly on some kind of like variant of like the super soldier serum, because he pops down from a window, does like a superhero landing, and then proceeds to like kick people and knock them like 20 feet back and shit, So he's this guy that has robbed this building is like clearly powered in some way. Probably because it's a Captain America story, probably from some variant of the super soldier serum that was, taken by the Winter Soldier and that was shown in Civil War. And like, there's other things that have happened. Like if you count the Hulk movie in the MCU, which it is part of the MCU, there was a big thing about that with the super soldier serum was involved in that movie as well. So it's somebody with like super soldier serum abilities or whatever that does this. This causes like a big stir. Joaquin gets his ass beat. It looks almost like he's getting killed or something, but he survives.
Yeah.
And he messages
The leader of the Flag Smashers is, or at least like the guy like Joaquin went up against. They are really strong. So.
Yeah. So there's something that's going to come from that, I'm sure. And then basically, like, he contacts Sam and they talk, and he's like, I'm okay. And Sam's like, why did you get involved? You were only supposed to observe. And Joaquin's like, well, oops, my bad, I guess. And then Sam's sister kind of directs his attention to something that's on the TV, and it's the one government guy that we saw towards the beginning of the episode that was telling Sam that it was a good idea, that he made the right move in giving up the shield. And this is like the big betrayal kind of moment and like the ending of the episode.
Yeah, the big reveal.
Yeah.
Of ending an episode and the big betrayal. Because now we know like what they meant, when they basically congratulate Sam on not taking the shield.
Yeah, they gave it to somebody else.
Yeah, they gave it to somebody else, god damn it. John Walker, they basically announced John Walker as the new Captain America at like some press event. And the guy walks out, and that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah,
they just show him
come out and seeing Sam's reaction to it.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Like, and for Sam, again, it's not so much that Sam's feeling like, no, I should be Captain America. Like, Sam's whole philosophy for the episode was like, nobody but Steve could be Captain America.
Yeah. So, I think there's even more to that though, because like, there's this sense of like, he was chosen to be the successor to Captain America by Captain America. So if somebody is going to be Captain America, it should be him.
It should be him, but
he put everything else first. He put
I don't think Sam's reaction is that selfish though. I think Sam...
No, I don't think it's selfish. What I'm saying is I think that it epitomizes how hard that was for him to not take the mantle.
Yeah.
This was not something he came to easily. Like he put his ideals ahead of himself.
Yes.
And they showed that through him kind of being poor and all these things, and like showing that if he had that mantle of Captain America, it would mean so much, how much that would mean to him and to kind of his family and to, representation. And there's so many ways that would be so meaningful for him to take the mantle.
And here's the big thing with this is like, how much does the mantle mean to this guy? Who's this guy? Yeah.
Just some rando, and the government just gave it away like it was nothing.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And they didn't even, it's not like they called him up and said, hey, we know that, you turned it down, but we need a symbol of hope now. Will you take up the mantle? They didn't even stop at the thought of that. They went right to somebody else.
Yeah, they went right to somebody else.
Yeah. Which there's a lot implied there about like racism. And
so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
So, but
it's unspoken, but it's there.
But say, to Sam, this is not only a betrayal of him, but Sam's thinking this is a betrayal to Steve as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is not what Steve wanted.
Yeah, and it just made everything that Sam went through to make that decision meaningless.
Yeah.
Or even worse than meaningless, because it wouldn't even be him. It wouldn't even be Steve's chosen successor taking up to some random person. He has no idea who this guy is, and that makes it even worse,
Exactly.
So it's a very layered moment that with a lot of stuff that's unspoken, that kind of everyone's reaction, if you look around the internet, was like, what the fuck? Time to take down the government,
People didn't see this coming, haven't been paying attention, but yeah.
They knew it was coming, but it's like infuriating,
Yeah, it is. But
I feel a little sad though, because the actor who's playing John Walker is Wyatt Russell. That's actually Kurt Russell's son.
Yes.
He's a great actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff that I've loved him in. He was in a show called Lodge 49. It's amazing. He's very good in that role and stuff. And so I really like the actor. People are like weird, like in fandom, when they feel like they're betrayed by a character. Like they kind of turn on the actor, for some reason. Oh, yeah. And that happened immediately. Like people were like making fun of his looks and doing going just off on him. And it's like, dude, he's playing a character. He didn't betray Sam.
Yeah, exactly.
he's
come back to real life.
Yeah, this is a real person. Don't make fun of his looks. His looks aren't specific to his character. That's to the actor,
Right.
So I feel bad for the way people have been kind of treating Wyatt Russell about all of this. Like they've been making this. a little bit of a funny comparison comparing him to the guy from Up.
Oh man. Wait till the reaction when they give his character his own spin-off series. We're gonna be pissed.
It's like, yeah, it's a little upsetting because it's like, this is an actor that's doing, probably going to do quite a good job because he's a good actor.
Yeah.
Who's part of, he's a legacy MCUer too because his dad was Ego the Living Planet,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. There you go.
This is a second generation MCU actor. But yeah, that part is souring me a little bit. Not on the show because it's not the show's fault, obviously, but on kind of like the way the fandom's reacting to it. It's like, yeah, you should hate the character, that's fine, but don't make jabs at the actor playing the character. Like you're supposed to be annoyed by him, That's he's playing his part, it's kind of annoying. But anyways,
I'm interested to see where they go with it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that we know that they didn't go into, one thing they didn't touch upon in this episode that we know is coming is Zemo.
Yeah.
We know that he's coming back.
Zemo was in the episode actually as a name on Bucky's notebook.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, okay. But we didn't actually see him or what he's doing now. Obviously this is where we get to see him don the purple hood for the first time.
Yeah, there are two major characters that we haven't seen yet in this series that we know are coming, and he's one of them. The other one's Sharon Carter.
Yes.
That we know are going to be in the series. We just haven't seen them yet. So, but yeah, Baron Zemo is going to be in this and in a much more like comic book, version of his character, like with costume and everything,
Yes.
Where in Civil War, he just kind of acted as a mastermind. Like we're probably going to see him more in combat and stuff now.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be interesting because right now it seems like there's all these disparate elements, we got the Flag Smashers, but you don't know what the heck's going on with them. We know we got Zemo coming up. We got John Walker, and now it's a question of how is all this stuff connected,
Yeah. It's Marvel, so we know it's all connected.
It's all connected. So it'll be interesting, to see where it goes. There's a lot of stuff coming up. It's promising to be an action-packed series, surprisingly for what was billed as like an action, buddy comedy type deal. This has a lot more. It has a lot more, drama and character moments to it, which is good. We
haven't even gotten to the buddy part. Like the stories are completely separate right now.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten them together yet.
Yeah.
So lots to come. I'm excited.
Yes, definitely.
I really enjoyed this first episode. It was fantastic. In my opinion, it was fantastic.
Yeah, to note, this was actually what was supposed to kick off the MCU stuff on Disney Plus.
Yes.
This was supposed to be the first one. WandaVision came first because of the pandemic and shooting schedules and stuff, that they were able to finish up WandaVision before they were able to finish up this.
Again, you could tell this was supposed to be the first thing people saw on Disney Plus because, again, the opening scene being this really elaborate and expensive action sequence, that was kind of
it's a message.
I got to mention, it's a statement of intent.
Yeah.
But these TV shows, they're going to be just like the movies that we put out. It's going to have all the action, all the budget you expect. The first episode of WandaVision doesn't quite sell that message the same way. It just does not.
Yeah, they actually had to put 2 episodes up at once for WandaVision because you only really get to the second episode that it starts hinting that no, this isn't just some weird spin-off where it's going to be entirely a black and white sitcom. Like you only really get that towards the end of the second episode where that's like implied that it is something deeper than that, so they had to kind of do that so that fans understood that that's what was coming,
Yeah.
So they didn't just go like, what? Marvel's making a sitcom. What the fuck? I'm out.
Again, to dispel the notion that they were going to do that with every series. No, they only released 1 episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier this past Friday.
Yeah. A longer episode though.
But then again, the episodes are longer. I believe each episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier is supposed to be about an hour long versus 30 minutes for WandaVision.
I think they said 40 minutes to an hour for.
But there's also less episodes of this because I believe there's only supposed to be 6 episodes of this.
6 episodes of this, and there were 9 of WandaVision. And the last 2 episodes of WandaVision were in that 40 minute, around that area. But the rest of them were like around 25 to 30 minutes, So yeah, I think this first episode was like 45 minutes or something, which is like basically a broadcast hour. It's like what an episode of ER would be, to use like a really old reference, I guess, would be about 45 minutes without commercials. So it was like around the length of broadcast drama, But there's supposed to be some episodes that are even longer that kind of go more towards like the 50 minutes to an hour range. So yeah, that's it. I take it you liked it?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite sold.
Not quite there. Just ignore my previous comments.
Not enough bank teller for you.
Yeah.
Where's his backstory?
Where's his story? How'd he come to work at a bank?
Yeah.
No, I don't give a shit about that guy.
Marvel's bank teller. That used to be a joke whenever I would like live tweet like the Marvel Netflix shows. Like there'd be a scene where I think it was like in Daredevil or Iron Fist or one of them where like he ran through and like went through like a Chinese kitchen or something. And like I would text out like, Marvel's Chinese chefs coming soon to Netflix, like everybody needs a show,
Well, I saw like a hard drive Twitter tweet out Marvel's next series, Marvel's anybody who's available to film next Tuesday. It has like a logo and everything.
Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah, I'm really psyched. I can't wait for the next episode, and I look forward to discussing this week to week as the episodes come out, which we will be doing for the last episodes of our podcast. Basically, this podcast will be ending on episode 300, and we're basically getting through. We might end up like taking a week off and then discussing 2 episodes 1 week, just so we can line it up right, so we can do our 300th episode, not about this show, but do something else, like a kind of more of a celebration of the podcast kind of thing, So we might do something along those lines to end it out, but this is basically the last show we're discussing on this podcast before we launch our next one. So yeah, it's a good one to go out on, I think. We'll have to see where it goes, and we'll have to see, what else we get from it. And I can't wait for Sam and Bucky to come together again and to kind of get that whole buddy cop thing going.
Same. That's going to be awesome.
So that's it for this week. All we have left to do is talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks on the horizon. So today, Monday, March 22nd, Breeders returned on FX. On Thursday, March 25th, Superstore returns on NBC. The Restaurant on Sundance Now, and Dota Dragon's Blood comes to Netflix. On Friday, March 26th, Solar Opposites returns on Hulu. Invincible debuts on Amazon Prime. That's another kind of superhero related show. It's an animated one, but it's from Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead, and it's kind of a fairly well respected comic that it's based on. That's kind of a deconstruction, think like The Boys or something. So look up that one on Amazon Prime. Also, The Mighty Ducks Game Changers comes to Disney Plus. So if you like the Mighty Ducks movies, this is like a direct continuation, kind of like in the vein of like Cobra Kai, I guess, with Emilio Estevez's character kind of being brought back into the lives of child hockey players. And The Irregulars comes to Netflix, which is that's that show. It's like Sherlock Holmes acting as the leader of a group of teenage mutants kind of thing. Sherlock Holmes X-Men, basically. But that comes to Netflix on Friday, March 26th as well. On Sunday, March 28th, City on a Hill comes to Showtime. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist on NBC. On Wednesday, March 31st, Back on IFC. On Thursday, April 1st, Law and Order Organized Crime on NBC. Manifest on NBC. The Moody's on Fox, and United States of Al on CBS. And lastly, on Sunday, April 4th, Atlantic Crossing miniseries comes to PBS. Unfortunately, it's not Animal Crossing miniseries on PBS. It's just Atlantic Crossing. And then Gangs of London debuts on AMC. So that's what's coming up. As I mentioned, next week we're going to continue our coverage of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and for the next couple of weeks beyond as well. I'm at Tyson Gifford on Twitter. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like Apple Podcast or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in genre television.